Hey guys, welcome to your January TCG market update. What's happened in the market? We've had a lot of changes happen here over the last few weeks, particularly, of course, BC flipping tax that's come into play, and some other changes for first-time buyers, which have been a positive thing, the flipping tax being a negative thing. But let's just talk about the market overall in general. There are so many people now as we come into January that are wanting to maybe move up in the market, sell what they currently have, and get something maybe bigger or downsizing. And so many people do go out there and start the process backwards. So they're looking at houses before they're selling, and typically they have no way of buying that new house because they have to sell first. So keep in mind, subject to sale offers are very rare in this market. They are a very weak offer. They tie up properties, and if you do get a subject to sale in there, you might get bumped. It can be a very emotional roller coaster. So I always suggest to sell first with a long closing date and then buy. You're in a way better position. If you go out there and you try a subject to sale, even if you get it accepted, you're trying to sell your house and you probably take a lower offer, you might get bumped and you lose that house and then you get frustrated. So sell first, then buy. That's the only way you do it in a very balanced market the way it is. So keep that in mind if you are trying to make a move in 2025, and we will explain to you if you would like to do that. We're here to help you on that process. It can be a very stressful process, but if you get lots of time on the closing side, it will all work out and it all happens. So keep that in mind. Now, the BC flipping tax that came into a play with this, basically it applies. So BC flipping tax applies to profits that you earn on properties in BC, including pre-sale contracts if you've owned those properties for 730 days or less, basically 2 years. So really when it comes to pre-sales, people have questions about pre-sales. Is it when you buy the property? Is it when you take possession of the property? Because they can be years down the road when they're ready. So for pre-sale people, you're kind of out of it here, because what happens is when you write a contract, you will put up a deposit and then you'll wait a couple years before you get your keys. The flipping tax applies to when you remove your subjects and make the offer firm, not the day that you get your keys. So you're probably out of this tax because it'll be a couple years anyway before the property is done. Now, resale people, that applies to you where you just buy something and resell. You are taxed at 20% of your profits. There's a sliding scale that's on the BC government website that you can figure out. Basically, it's full 20% for the first year, and there's a sliding scale and disappears to 729 days near the end. Calculation can be quite difficult, so I would advise you to use a calculator online, but it can be up to 20% of the profits. So there's an example that I like to use here. For who's subject to this tax. Basically, an example would be if you purchased a taxable property on May 1st, 2023, and you sold the property on January 31st, 2025, the profit you earned from the sale would be taxable because that's a little less than 2 years. If you decide to sell the property on June 1st, 2025, then the profits would not be subject to tax. So that's a 2-year window there, right? So if you keep it for 15 months, you would basically owe the tax. If you keep it for 24 months, then you'd be exempt from that tax. Now, there are some exemptions as well. Things like, power of attorneys, we get into basically transfers, job transfers, divorces. There are some health ones. There are also some financial ones, so you can read those online. Now, we haven't really got into the whole estate side of it. If it's in a company name, you want to talk to your lawyer to get advice on that. We have many questions about properties that are business names. Are they exempt from it? We're not sure yet. We're still wanting to get a lawyer to answer those questions. But just the basic part of it is if it's owned, personal names on the contract, it's taxable up to 20% if you flip a property. Government trying to slow down that market. And for first-time buyer program that's brought in, basically they've kind of lowered that minimum down payment. It used to be 20%. That's due. Now basically you can put up to 5% down on the first 500,000 and 15% down on that remainder. So sorry, 10% down on the remainder. So it's 15% total, up to 1.5 million, which is insurable. So you're only putting down now about 75 grand on 1.5 million, as opposed to it would have been more, over 100 before. So keep that in mind. If you're a first-time buyer, that minimum amount down is now less on an insurable mortgage. Okay, so most people, when they're spending 1.5 million, they're not going to put down a minimum amount. Your mortgage would be really high anyways. I don't know why they made it up to such a high amount. I don't think people will get $1 million mortgages, but that's options there for you if you want it. Okay, so 2 changes that have happened. and BC flipping tax, and the first-time buyers program for that minimum down insured mortgage amount. So, and as well, the market right now seems to be picking up. We've seen multiple offers on townhouses in Chilliwack. We've seen multiple offers on properties in Vancouver. And most of that stuff's kind of priced $500K to $900K. So that middle mark seems to be moving. If you have a house with a suite right around 1.3 to 1.4, very active. Over 1.5 slows down a little bit. You must have a suite to people to qualify for those ones also. And we're seeing just a ton of people wanting to sell their current property and upgrade to a bigger property. But remember, sell first, long close, then buy. Don't put the cart ahead of the horse, or don't put the horse ahead of the, no, cart ahead of the horse. So keep that in mind. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you guys, guide you in the right direction, and make that perfect move that you want in 2025. Thanks again. Bye.